What is up, Arc Junkies? Today is the official start day of FabTech 2023 in Chicago. Even though I'm up here traveling, I didn't want to leave y'all without a new episode. And while I'm up here, I'm going to be recording even more episodes. I've got a lot of great content coming out for you right after FabTech, so be sure to subscribe on your favorite downloader app so you never miss an episode. In today's episode, I'm chatting with Terese Ricard, a former Spanish teacher who made the bold decision to transition into welding as a second career. Terese shares her journey and the valuable lessons she learned along the way, providing inspiration and guidance for those career changers out there interested in pursuing welding. We'll hear all about her story after a quick word from our supporters.
Hey guys, Kevin with the Welding Business Owners Podcast. I want to talk to you guys about the Fabricator Olympics, sponsored by Lincoln Electric, coming up on October 7th. We've got 30 spots for competitors to compete in basic fabrication challenges based on time and accuracy. The 5 top point earners from those challenges get to go head-to-head to compete against each other to win a brand new Lincoln 180i multi-process machine and $1,000 cash. Lincoln Electric is providing all the welders and tools and PPE so the playing field is completely level and competitors get to keep their PPE at the end. So come hang out with me and Jason Becker here in Quakertown, Pennsylvania for the first annual Fabricators Olympics on October 7th. Head on over to fabricatorolympics.com to get more information, to get your tickets to compete, to get your tickets for your friends to come watch you win. And if you have any questions, shoot us an email on there or find me on Instagram at Welding Business Owners Podcast. And we'll see you October 7th.
Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Maintenance welders, check it out. I've told you all about Rockmount's Brutus rods, but did you know that it's also available in a flux core? Well, it is. Flux core has better deposition rates and is more efficient than stick electrodes. So not only can switching to flux core wire save you time while welding, it can also save you money because you're putting more product into the weld joint, thus saving you even more money. Rockmount's Brutus flux core wire boasts 125,000 pounds of tensile strength and 35% elongation. It's ideal for dissimilar metals and has excellent corrosion resistance. Try that with your 7018. It's not going to work. Rockmount rods are specifically designed and formulated for maintenance welding in the field where the work is actually happening. Check out Brutus Flux Core and Rockmount's entire catalog at rockmountwelding.com. And when you spend $250 or more, you can get a free 1-pound tube of tartan AAA when you use AJP in the discount box at checkout. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather in Pasadena, Texas. Outlaw is American-owned and operated by an awesome group of people who put customers first and prioritize quality and speed on all of your custom orders. Whether you're looking for a custom hood, arm pad, ironworker gear, or any other custom leather piece, Outlaw is the perfect place to make your dream a reality. Just send them an email with the details and description of your work to info@outlawleatherllc.com and they'll bring your concept to reality. Maybe you're not looking for a custom piece. Well, then check out their full range of in-stock, ready-to-ship, handmade leather goods. They also carry everything else you need as a welder to include PPE, hand tools, layout tools, torches, and everything in between. And they offer fast and easy shipping so you can get what you want when you need it. Just hop on over to outlawleather.com. And as a listener of the Arc Junkies Podcast, you can save 15% off all their in-stock leather goods when you use Arc Junkies in the discount box at checkout. We're also brought to you by Fronius USA. Fronius is thrilled to announce 2 new welding products to unleash your welding potential. First up is the Fronius Dual Wire Feeder, the new WF25i. It gives welders the freedom to have 2 torches ready to go, each with different wire types or sizes, different welding parameters, and easily switchable at the touch of a button. No need to change your wire spools or consumables between applications. Get precision wire feeding and save time without adding complexity to your day. Next is the mobile fume extraction system, Exento. The Exento system comes in both a high-vac and low-vac version to fit your specific welding needs. The low-vac system includes a flexible extraction arm with 360 degrees of rotation and a flow-optimized hood for excellent fume extraction. The high-vac system combines perfectly with the Exento torch kits to remove more than 99.9% of captured fume particles at the arc to provide excellent extraction in a compact unit. Come experience both product lines at FabTech this September in Chicago. While at the booth, be sure to stick around for the daily machine giveaways, guest appearances, welding presentations, and of course the opportunity to weld on-site with a wide range of Fronius products. Alright, y'all know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Thank you for downloading show number 293 of the Arc Junkies Podcast.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Terese, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
I appreciate you reaching out. You have a very unique story. You know, like as we've talked about it several times on the podcast, the welding industry is hurting for people. And, you know, it's like anybody and everybody that's willing to get into the welding industry, like, let's go. Come on. But you've got a very unique situation because you are a college professor.
That's right. I'm a college professor who had never seen a welder before, had no idea what a rod was, didn't know how to change a grinding disc, didn't even know what a grinding disc was. And at 40 years old, I decided to go to night school after I had taught my classes during the day and signed up for the welding certificate here at school.
Now, what was it that drew you to welding? Like, why specifically welding? Why not like plumbing or HVAC or like a million other different trades or skills you can get into?
We don't have for plumbing, so that wasn't an option. Automotive doesn't run classes at night. HVAC, I didn't think was for me, and I didn't know what mechatronics even was. So it was just welding by default. Okay. I'd never been in that building, never met any of those guys. And it was, again, just by default. Yeah, welding sounds good. They've got night classes. Let's do it.
Okay, so you weren't actively seeking out welding specifically. Were you just looking for like a change of scenery, a change of career path?
It was a combination of a lot of things kind of coming together at the right time. It had been a long time coming, but the stars just really aligned. And I trace it back to about 4 years ago. I was walking down the hallway. It was summer semester, so things are pretty quiet here at school. Walking down the hallway, and a woman that I work with who had retired for 2 years had just come back, saw me pass down the hallway and asked, "Terese, when are you due?" I said, "Excuse me?" I was not pregnant at the time, mind you. But she wanted to know when I was due. She thought I was pregnant. I'd gained a little bit of weight. And if you ever want to stop a woman in her tracks, ask her when she's having her baby, if she's not having a baby.
No, because I don't want to die young.
I bring this up because at that moment, I don't know, I felt a lot of different things, as you can imagine. And that was a wake-up call for me. Like I said, I had not been taking very good care of myself. And you could tell physically, emotionally, I was not in a good place. I had moved down here from Michigan 15 years ago, thinking that my stay in South Carolina would be temporary, maybe be here 2 or 3 years, and then get back home. But 15 years later, here I was. Teaching was never the plan. But I have a couple liberal arts degrees under my belt. I've got degrees in German, political science, and then I went and got my master's in Spanish. And my reality upon graduation was there were not many job opportunities. But I did what I had to do, took a teaching job here at the community college in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And honestly, I just kind of got stuck. I think once you start teaching, you get pigeonholed as an educator, and it's difficult to market yourself as anything but a teacher. And so I'd been here for 15 years and felt like I was stagnating, that I hadn't really learned anything in about 15 years, anything new. And teaching had changed significantly after COVID. A lot of teaching is sitting behind a computer, sitting at your desk behind the computer. And, as I started to really think about what it was going to be that would make me happy, I kept coming back to wanting to do something with my hands, wanting to do something where if I put in the work, I could see that progression, I could see that progress. And with teaching, there's no real sense of accomplishment. There's a lot of routine, a lot of monotony, which on one hand, I need that routine and monotony, but it was getting to be too much. And I'm a curious person. I like learning. And it was just time to do something new. Like I said, my 40th birthday was coming up. I wanted to do something as a birthday present to myself. And I think in some ways it was a way for me to feel closer to my family. My dad taught shop class at the high school. My grandpa was a pipe fitter for Dow Chemical. And I don't know, I felt like getting into the shop and doing something like welding would, in a sense, get me closer to my family, even though geographically we were still several states away.
Okay. Now, what was your first thoughts when you walked into the welding program? Like because you come out of academia, which it's set up completely different in the skilled trades area as it is in academia. You might have a classroom in the skilled trades area, but for the most part, everything should be out there done in the lab.
I can't even tell you how far in over my head I was. When I went to sign up for classes, the program director had told me at the time, he said, don't get on YouTube, don't look at any video, don't do anything. Just come in that door and let us teach you everything.
Smart instructor.
Yes. And it's similar to what I tell my students, that I would rather them come in with no previous experience. I don't want egos coming in the door. I don't want to fix mistakes that they had picked up, along the way.
I don't want to break any bad habits.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
So on one hand, I'm very grateful that I didn't know what I was getting into. I was so naive about the whole thing. Looking back at it, I don't know how I went through with it, but I think a lot of it was, I just didn't know what I was getting into. And that first night, these guys are finishing their first plate because, like you just said, there is no classroom instruction. It's, okay, go get a booth, get your rods, and get to work. Well, I don't know.
I don't know how to do the work.
I didn't know what gloves to put on. I could barely take the tags off my gloves. It's hot. I'm already worn out, stressed out. And I didn't even know what to ask. There was just so much. And of course, I'm already comparing myself to everybody else, even though you can't see what's going on in the other booths. I'm already assuming that they're professionals at this point.
Oh, they're making a lot more noise over there. It sounds like they know what they're doing.
Right. Never mind that they're faking it half the time. But here I am. I'm used to being the subject matter expert. I am used to being the one in charge. And for that complete role reversal, I've never experienced anything like it. And that whole first semester, there were a lot of tears, and I hate to admit that. And of course, I never let anyone see them. But we would take a break and I'd come back to my office and just have the lights off and cry for about 30 minutes because I was just so overwhelmed. When I started the program, I had given myself permission to quit if it came to that. I didn't want to, but I just wanted to push through because I know there were bets going. When I finished the program, even my dad said, Terese, I didn't give you 2 weeks at welding. And now my dad is my biggest cheerleader. So for him to say something like that, that tells you a lot. But it was such a learning experience. And I know that's what it was supposed to be. And that's what I wanted. But it was tough. It was so hard. It was humbling. It was having to rely on the instructors, on the other students in some cases, for everything. And I was often the first one there. I was the last one to leave. And I'd see these guys leaving early or coming in late. And, I'm thinking, but that's not fair. Don't they know I have to get up and work in the morning? And don't they know that by the time I get home, I've got to do laundry and I've got, a whole list of things to do? They don't care. And it's not their place to care. It's not their job to care. And I had signed up for it. And like they would remind me every once in a while, I'm not special, that they treated me like every other student, which is how it should have been. And I appreciate that very much. But it was one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing I've ever done. But I loved it. And if I didn't love it, I could not have kept up with it, because I was dragging, some mornings I felt like I would have been just better off spending the night at school and waking up the next morning and teaching my classes. But again, I could see that progression. And within the first 2 weeks, probably, it completely changed the way I was teaching my own classes. It gave me a perspective that I had never had before. I think once you've been teaching for a while, you take it for granted, your knowledge, that the content matter, that you make assumptions that students are coming in with a certain amount of background information, or, I don't know, common knowledge, I guess. And that's just not true. I have students coming up to me in the first week of class feeling overwhelmed because they think I'm speaking too much Spanish, and I might have said 10 words in Spanish. But I get that now. I get that in ways that I never, ever did. And so not only was I dog tired, but I really enjoyed what I was doing. And I saw a change in me when I went back in front of the classroom.
So do you think that's what it was that kept you going and kept you pushing? Because it's not easy to do that, working a full-time job during the day and then taking night classes in the evening, plus having all the additional responsibilities as an adult.
Right.
That takes a lot out of you. So do you think that, what exactly do you think it was that made you keep pushing and not give up?
A big part of it, I'll admit, was pride. I didn't want to quit. I wanted to finish that dang certificate. And again, I really liked it. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. So that kept me going. The sense of community kept me going. Part of the reason I started welding was I was lonely. I was tired of going home to an empty house after school every day. And I was missing that sense of community. And when you are spending 5 nights with the same people, or 5 hours a night with the same people for a year, for better or worse, you become a family. You've got good nights, you've got bad nights, but I really enjoyed that group of people that I was with. They worked hard, and they had high expectations. And so that kept me going. And I just kept going back to my own students, they have families. They've got full-time jobs in many cases, 2 or 3 jobs. And I know there are people out there working much harder than I was, and not always by choice. I was very grateful for the opportunity that I had. So that kept me going, realizing that this is an opportunity that not a lot of people have, and I didn't want to waste it.
Yeah. You're right about the community, the family aspect of it. I've seen that not just in my own program, but programs like I've traveled all across the United States and visited with other welding instructors, saw, many different welding classrooms. And it really seems like the different welding programs, they've just got a bond that most other programs don't have, whether it's, the mechatronics class or CNC or, whatever other class, culinary arts. It really seems like the welding classes, they just form this special bond. And I don't know exactly what, maybe it's the fire that brings everybody closer together.
Could be.
But it just seems like they're a more tight-knit group. And once you get rolled into the fold in that class, you literally, it's like Carrabba's when you're here, your family, they just roll you into that thing.
Right.
And, I've seen a lot of long-lasting relationships come out of a welding program. Like many of my students are still friends, or, they're working together now, or, things like that. But they just form this tight little bond, they're in their own little world.
Yeah, I'm still great friends with one of the boys I went through school with. And it's just funny that some nights it was hard not to be their mom, to not say, well, just wait 20 years down the road. You're going to wish that you had worn insoles in your boots, or, you're going to wish, it was hard not to be that person. But yeah, they took me in and accepted me as one of their own, these people that, look nothing like you. On the outside, it seems like you have nothing in common, but at the end of the day, you really do. And they all had their own really unique, cool stories.
Mm. Now, what was it like kind of clocking out from your day job as faculty and then, walking over to the welding program and clocking in as a student? I mean, that's got to be another culture shock.
For sure. Absolutely. It was a culture shock. It was, over in that building, it's very much suck it up, buttercup, and leave your feelings at the door. And we don't care that you're a fellow faculty member, because when you're in here, you're a student. And like I said, that's how it should have been. But boy, there were some nights that I just wanted to cuss those guys out, because I don't know, you're frustrated. And the reality is that, yes, I'm a student, but my relationship with you guys is different. I'm not the average student. And sometimes I would see how things were being run over there, and it's so different than arts and sciences. And I knew that. I went into that expecting that it would be very, very different. But it's hard, again, to step back and not be the one in charge, or not expect special treatment, or not ask for favors because, well, don't you understand? I had this, and this going on at school today. So yeah, it was tough. And it was hard not to, when we were just talking about relationships amongst the students, I wanted to have those relationships with students and have those friendships. But at the same time, I had to maintain boundaries, that it couldn't be a typical friendship amongst, students who are not also faculty. So it was hard. Yeah, just, again, maintaining those boundaries, but then at the same time, opening up and working with those guys, and letting them come in and help you, and asking them for help. And so, yeah, it was a unique challenge for sure.
Yeah, I had a similar situation to yours, almost reversed. So I taught welding during the day, and then in the evenings, I was working on my bachelor's degree. So a lot of the professors, that I had that were my instructors when I was a student, on Friday afternoons, we might be having a faculty meeting. So like at that point, I'm their equal. We're all in there in the faculty meeting together, and next thing you know, I'm back in class. They're my instructor. I'm the student. So it's kind of a weird position to be in, flip flopping between skilled trades and the academia side, and kind of having a role or a position in both of those arenas. It puts you in a very unique situation, because like as a student, like I can't get special treatment because I want to be treated just like a student when I'm attending my bachelor's degree classes. Like, don't cut me any slack. Don't.
Right.
And they didn't. We weren't buddy until once I was out of the classroom, outside of class hours. Okay, yeah, if you're Mr. Becker, you teach the welding program. But it wasn't like I could have, like you said, different relationships. It's not like I could go out and have a beer after class with, one of my professors as a colleague, because I'm also their student. So it puts you in a very weird situation. And then vice versa.
And it is hard to, it's hard to know what's acceptable or what's appropriate.
There's nothing in the handbook.
Right. It's hard sometimes to, not stomp your feet and say, but don't you know who I am? They don't care who you are. It doesn't matter in there.
You can't pull rank anymore.
No, but that's one thing I really liked, that look, you've got to do the work just like everybody else. And one of the things that kept me going too, I've got to say, was the incredible support I got from my supervisor. It could have been very easy for people on campus to make it difficult for me to do both. For as much as I would like to say that attending these classes did not affect my job, there were some days I was beat. I was beat. I would still show up and teach, but it was pretty rough. And, my supervisor supported me throughout the whole thing. And without that, I know I couldn't have finished it. So that goes a long way.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned before that you learned some stuff in the welding class or from that mode of instruction that you started incorporating into like your own classes when you were teaching. Like, what are some of the things that you were able to cross over?
Well, for as much as I get on my own students for not speaking up and asking questions when I know they're not understanding the material, darn it if I wouldn't sit in that blueprint class and have 10 questions but not raise my hand and ask them. I don't know why, but I didn't want to speak up. I didn't want to be singled out. And so I've tried to now give my own students additional time especially for the non-traditional students that are coming back to school for the first time in 20 years that are not proficient with technology. I try and arrange the class so that they have more one-on-one time with me, so that if they are feeling intimidated or overwhelmed by some of the higher achievers in class that might have had Spanish in high school, the non-traditional students feel like they can come to me one-on-one without any additional attention from the other students and ask those questions that they've been having. Or, I don't know, I've just tried to make the class more relevant to them. I understand that they're not all going to go on and be Spanish majors, but I want them all to be able to take something from the course that they can apply to their own lives. And ultimately, I don't know, I'm just trying to teach them to be good people at the end of the day, that it's not so much about verb conjugations as it is, going out and being a good person, being a good partner, being a good friend. And, how can we apply Spanish to that principle?
Yeah, I think welding's pretty similar in that aspect. That's some of the things that I noticed when I was teaching welding that they don't tell you that. They're like, oh yeah, we need you to come in here and we need you to teach welding. Okay. But like you said, you're also teaching them life skills. I'm teaching them how to be a good person. I'm teaching them how to be a productive member of society. These
Exactly.
are all the underlining things that you don't realize that you're going to teach these people, but you start becoming, a mentor, a father figure, a mother figure. I mean, it just happens by nature of education. You care about these people and you want them to succeed and you want them to do well. So outside of, maybe teaching them Spanish, you're also teaching them life skills. Like you said, how to be a good person. Same thing in the welding class. Like I'm teaching work ethics, body language, different things like that a lot of people don't have coming into the classroom.
Well, and you end up learning so much from your students.
Yes.
That's what I love about being at community college is that all of they're so neat. And I wish they all could realize that, as the high school kids who are insecure and anxious about everything, I wish they could all just understand how cool they really are. And, these non-traditional students, the moms who are coming back at 45, 50 years old and are feeling so overwhelmed, like they can't keep up, if they only knew how proud everybody was of them. And, you just learn from your students. And I learned from the welding students in that same way. These 18, 19-year-old boys who, come from very, very different backgrounds than I do. It wasn't just the welding that I learned in those classes. It was a lot of life skills from these boys that I learned.
So what was when you going through the welding program, what do you think the biggest challenge you faced was?
The time management was hard, and I knew it would be going into it. I had let friends and family know ahead of time that, look, you probably won't see me for a while, or you might not hear from me as much as usual. but I had to make a lot of sacrifices. By the time Friday came around, I needed that time to recuperate so I could get up Monday morning and do it all over again. So I would say the time management was really hard. And again, just putting myself in a situation where I knew absolutely nothing. That I don't think many of us can say we've ever been in that kind of situation. That, yeah, you might have been somewhere where you were uncomfortable or weren't the subject matter expert or, had a few things to learn, but where you just knew nothing and were completely reliant on everyone else. That, like I said, that was very humbling and that was tough. But it made me a better person, and I just grew from that experience. And that's what I was hoping to get out of this. I wanted to grow, and I wanted to learn something new, and I definitely did in ways that I just would have never expected.
So you got a lot more than just welding skills out of it. You did some personal growth and personal development while you were in the program.
Oh, for sure. I like to think I'm a pretty tough, strong person, but I realize that I'm way tougher than I would have ever thought. And I think a lot of us, we all have that in us, and we just aren't always given the opportunity to push those boundaries, to really see what we're made of. And so, yeah, I did learn that. And I've learned how to ask for help, that not asking for help is not necessarily a sign of strength, that you need to let people know what you need. And not only do you need to know how to ask for help, but you need to know how to accept that help as well. And that's hard. I learned to say no. I learned to set boundaries in ways that I hadn't before. And again, none of that has anything to do with the actual welding itself. And I learned to leave well enough alone, that I don't know if it's going back as an adult to school. I think part of it is being a woman, but I kind of had that attitude that if I can't do this perfectly, well, then I don't want to do it. Well, it's not going to be perfect. It definitely was not for a long, long time. It's still not. It probably never will be. But you have to know when to say, you know what, but this is good enough. And I worked my tail off, and it's fine. And that's okay. And one of the instructors that first semester, I don't know, it was a rough night, and I said something about not belonging in that building. And he looked at me, he said, Terese, you understand that in this building, we're all misfits. At the same time, none of us really belong, or none of us have belonged outside this building. And that's why we're all here. And that kind of stuck with me, that he was right about that we're all misfits, just, kind of trying to make it through.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. Everlast has an awesome promo going on with the new Typhoon 300. Right now, you can get a free water cooler or a free wireless foot pedal when you order the new Typhoon 300. There's no promo codes, there's no rebates, there's no other hoops to jump through. Just place an order for the new Typhoon 300 and let them know which free item you want. It's that easy. And as always, be sure to use Arc Junkies in the comment section at checkout to get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. We're also brought to you by Workbench Pros. Are you looking to upgrade your current fabrication setup? Then look no further than Workbench Pros. You can now buy all of your Build Pro tools and tables right through workbenchpros.com. They have everything you need to help increase your accuracy and decrease your time on build. If you've never used a fab table, you don't know what you're missing. And once you do, you're never going to go back to a makeshift welding table again. Right now, Workbench Pros is having a massive summer sale special on Build Pro tables and fixturing tools. Check them out today at workbenchpros.com and stop fighting your work and start dominating it. All right, now let's get back into the show. That might be why the welding community is such a tight community, because we don't fit in anywhere else. We're a band of misfits.
Right. Yeah. And that hit home.
Yeah. And I've also noticed that because I've trained several females that have come through my program, and they were all the same. The weld has to be perfect. No, it doesn't. I mean, it's got to be good enough. You can always improve. I don't care, how good of a weld you put down. You can always make improvements. But a lot of the females, they get hung up on it. It's not perfect. It's not, don't get hung up on that.
But it's hard too. And then it goes back to not comparing yourself to other people or not worrying about what other people are doing And two, you don't even know what perfect looks like or what perfect really is. That my version of, oh, this pipe is awful. It might have been a great pipe, but if you've never done it before, you don't really know. And yes, when I finally realized that, oh, I'm not all that much further behind than these other guys, I don't know why I just spent 6 months thinking that I was. And I think that applies to life as well. Just stop worrying about what other people are doing and focus on yourself.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to get out of your own way.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely had to learn that the hard way. And now I try and pass that lesson on to my students. And I also learned that stereotypes still exist. That it is hard being a woman in welding sometimes. It can be awesome, and I wouldn't change my experience for anything, but it was hard. It's hard doing that at 40 years old. That it's just those stereotypes are still there, and it's hard sometimes not to get caught up in that.
Mm-hmm. Now, going through the different processes, which one do you think was the most difficult to grasp?
So we didn't do any MIG welding. It's just stick and TIG. And I could stick weld all day long. I really enjoy that. Now, at first it was hard because, well, I had never done it before. But 5G, 6G, any of those positions where you're like crawling around on your hands and knees all night long, that was pretty rough. But there's nothing really in particular. Stainless, stainless, take it or leave it. But I just really enjoyed all of those because it was learning something new with each test.
Mm-hmm. Now, originally you went through the basic course, and now you're currently going through the advanced course.
That's right.
So
I graduated.
You didn't get enough the first time. You went back for more.
I didn't. I graduated in December with the certificate. So that was a year-long program. Graduated in December, and I've missed it. I've missed it a lot, and ended up registering for the advanced certificate and starting back. I guess it's been 3 weeks now that we've been in class. And the advanced certificate, this will be another 6 months. We'll finish that up in February.
And then what are you learning in the advanced class as opposed to the basics? I mean, you did stick and TIG in the basic class. Mm-hmm. What are you doing in the advanced?
So we've got a pipe fitting class, an advanced pipe class. We are doing field welding, and then monster coupon. We'll do the monster coupon test.
Okay. 2-inch double extra heavy wall?
Yeah.
Now, are you doing that with stick or TIG, or are you doing a combo weld on that?
I think it'll be a combo.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be the next class that we do, but it's combo.
So TIG root 7018 fill and cap?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that should be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Just a ton of fun from what I hear.
Yeah. That's a hard one. I've actually never taken that test.
No?
I've never even practiced on the 2-inch double extra heavy wall coupons. I don't do
I'll
a whole
I'll
lot
let
with
you know
pipe.
how it goes.
Yeah, let me know how that goes. I want to learn that. I got
Depending on the results, I'll let you know how it goes.
I got a couple buddies. I want to hook up with them. I think I just should buy some. Like now that I got the welding school and everything, I can go in whenever I want and practice it. So I got to get a hold of some of my buddies that do the 2-inch and all that stuff, and at least give it a shot.
Yeah, if nothing else, that you've done it.
Yeah. So now you graduate in February. What are your plans and goals and aspirations once you graduate the program?
That's a great question, and one I don't really have a great answer to. I don't know. Like I said, I did not expect to love welding as much as I do. I thought that it would be, okay, I'll go learn something new, try it out, go back to teaching Spanish, and that'll be fine. I almost wish I didn't like it this much, because it's real hard when you find something that you enjoy as much as I do to not have that in your life. But then at the same time, I don't know how you combine 15 years of teaching Spanish at the college level with welding. It's not realistic for me to go take an entry-level welding position at this point in my career. I would love to transition into that area, something to do with the trades. But I don't know what that looks like really. And we'll see what comes up.
So do you love the welding part of it?
I do. Yeah, I love the welding, and again, just that whole welding community that I really enjoy that group of people, and can see myself doing something with this long term. I don't think this is just a phase. And on one hand, I wish that I had this experience earlier in my life. At the same time, I could not have done this at any other point in my life. That's the irony, is that, if I had tried to do it at 20, 25, I wouldn't have been ready. I couldn't have done it. So I like to think I'm in the right place at the right time, and whatever happens next, we'll see.
You don't think you could have done it back when you were 20, 25?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Why not?
No. Oh, I could barely do it at 40. Well, to start, but no, I'm not really known for, manual labor or getting my hands dirty. One of the instructors in the shop, he retired several years ago, but then came back to teach part-time. So he was here at the college when I first started. And after a couple weeks in class, he said, "I finally remember who you are." I said, "You do? What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, you're that girl. She always used to wear heels and dresses and always had her nails done, always wore makeup." I said, "Oh yeah, that was me about 20 years ago." He said, "Well, a lot has changed since then, hasn't it?" And he's right. But I'd say it's changed for the better.
Yeah. Now, there's got to be some different sectors of industry that you could get into, especially with your background in Spanish. I know I keep hearing about all these jobs that are popping up down in Panama. I guess they're putting in petrochemical lines or pipelines down there in Panama. So, I mean, they're actually setting up schools to teach people how to weld because they can't find enough workers to do that. So somebody with, pipe welding experience, coming out of a class, you're very familiar with the educational aspect of it. Plus you've got the hands-on aspect, and then plus you speak Spanish. So, I mean, that'd be one route you could get into. I mean, there's got to be, as much as this, everybody screams, we need welders. There's got to be some sector of the industry that you can get into that'd be unique for your situation. Because a lot of people that are just getting out of welding school, they're going to start in that first shop. And depending on where you go, it could be a high wage. It could be a low wage. Certain areas of the U.S., I know students are coming out making $15-16 an hour, which is barely above minimum wage. But then there's a select few that can make up to $32 an hour, just depending on where you're at, where you want to go, whether you want to travel or not. I mean, there's a lot of work out there. It just depends on which industry you want to get into. Now, if you want to stay local, I mean, pay rates are going to be very minuscule depending on what's going on in your area. I think you said you're in South Carolina?
Yeah.
So you're not too far from, where they do all the race cars, NASCARs, and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know exactly where they're building the frames for the new NASCARs, but I would imagine that there's a lot of work going on for that just because they're all producing the same frames in one area.
Yeah, I think that's up in North Carolina somewhere.
Yeah.
Or not far anyway. But...
Yeah, up by, I think, like Charlotte area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's one thing I've just learned from this whole experience is that life is funny, and you just never know that. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect that I would be a graduate of the welding certificate program and sitting here talking to you. And so that gives me hope that maybe something will come up down the road. Yeah.
And I hope that, there's somebody out there listening that, was either in a similar situation or has something available for somebody in your unique situation. I mean, later in life, you decide, you know what, I'm done teaching in academia. I want to get into, the skilled trades. There's got to be some way to be able to transition from one to the next. Especially, like I said, with everybody screaming we need welders, like, prove it. I mean, there's got to be a spot somewhere.
Yeah, and I would love to be that motivational story for someone else that, that other woman at 40 years old who's sitting there thinking about a career change or thinking, I wish I would have, that it really is never too late.
No, I'm glad you said that. I get people that reach out to me all the time and they're like, hey, I'm 56. Is it too late for me to learn how to weld? No, it's not. It's never too late to learn how to do anything. I mean, if you put your mind to it, if you've got an interest in it, it's something that you want to do, it's never too late to learn, whether it's, for a hobby or an occupation. I had a guy, Brad, the first class that I taught, he was actually 56 years of age. And that was one of his first questions when he came into the program. He's like, hey, Jason, do you think, because, he's way older than me. He's like, Jason, he wasn't going to call me Mr. Becker. He's like, he was the only one too, which was cool. It was fine by me. I respected him. He's old. I respect my elders. But he's like, do you think I'm too old to learn how to weld? I said, Brad, if you want to learn how to weld, who am I to tell you can't? And I said, I just got one question. Like, you just retired. Why would you want to, he didn't want to learn to weld for hobbyist reasons. He wanted to learn and start a new career. I was like, you're 56. Wow. Like, why would you want to learn a whole new skill set and start back at the bottom? He says, well, I'm tired of glazing windows, so I want something else to do, and I'm not ready to lay down and retire yet. Okay, I can respect that. And he did awesome in the program.
Well, and I think, too, when you come back as an older student, yes, some aspects of going back to school will be more difficult for you. But on the other hand, you're bringing a lot to the table, and you've learned a lot along the way that you've learned, there's no point in complaining. Just do what they're asking you to do, that you've learned to play the game, so to speak, jump through the hoops, because that's what you have to do as part of the program. And you've learned how to manage your time better than you did when you were 20, hopefully. And, so there are a lot of positives to going back to school as a non-traditional student as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I enjoyed when I was teaching is I liked having at least one female in the class and at least one older person. And I liked having the female in the class because they would, most of the females, they would always keep the boys on their toes. And because the boys, they don't want to lose to a girl. It's just inherent. It's inherent in their nature. Like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old boy or young man does not want to lose to a female when it comes to a welding competition.
Sure as hell don't want to lose to an old woman,
especially
old, quote unquote.
Yeah, well, especially because females aren't supposed to be in this trade, so I've got to do better than she does. So it keeps them on their toes, and it keeps them pushing harder and harder to keep up, because most of the women that come in the program, they've got an axe to grind, they've got a point to prove. So they're in there just kicking ass and taking names. So all the guys are trying to keep up. And then I like having somebody who's older in the program because they do have the life experiences. And no matter how many times I try to tell a student something, it doesn't always click. But if you get, one of their peers that might have 15, 20 years on them, and they tell them the same exact thing, or they're leading by example, you start seeing that shift in the other students' behavior. You start seeing them act a little bit more mature. You start seeing them start to develop the work ethics because they have an older person in that classroom that's not the instructor, that's more like a friend and mentor. versus
right.
like
And,
an
and
instructor.
they bring some credibility that
Yeah.
the instructor might not.
Yeah.
In the eyes of those other students anyway.
Yeah. So, and you know, then they're on the same page, you know. But I've always enjoyed that dynamic as having like a group of mixed students. You know, I know some of the instructors right now, and they've got a group of like, I don't know, it's a whole group of like 13 or 14, 20 to 22-year-old boys or young men. And it's just a weird dynamic. There's like no structure. They're all over the place. But you drop a female and an older person in there, and it's like, boom, like everything
Yeah,
kind
it completely
of lines up.
changes
It
those
changes
dynamics.
the entire dynamic in the operating procedures of the classroom.
That's true. And I think, I don't know, there's this expectation that if there's more than one woman in the class, that they're going to be competing with each other and they are not going to be supporting each other. But that was not my experience at all. That there were five women in the night class.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the most support came from, was the other women. And it was really neat to see. And even the other women on campus, when they found out that I was welding. And again, you think there's some competition there or jealousy or whatever, but that was not my experience. That it was the women who came out to really cheer me on and support me.
Well, I think because they can relate. They're in a very similar situation. You guys kind of lean on each other for help and support.
Yeah, but then at the same time, there's the stereotype that it is always a competition, or that women are out to get each other, or we've got to one up each other. But no, not in that weld shop.
Oh, wait till you're applying for the same job. That's when you'll see it. Now, what did your other faculty members think? Did you inspire anybody else to go down and take the welding program, or did they think you were crazy, or
No.
like you get the humanities professor down there running arcs and beads
Not
and all
yet.
that?
No, I'm trying to get my department chair to go through the automotive program. I haven't been successful with that yet, but I tried not to advertise what I was doing. I didn't want that attention, and self-promotion is not my thing. But it just came up when people would see my car here still at 7, 8 o'clock, or they would see me come in my work boots and jeans after having taught all day long. There were some questions there. And, but no, I not that I know of. I don't think anyone else has signed up to go back to school. But again, that's my hope, that maybe someone will, even if it's not to necessarily finish a program, go back for a class, do something for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe I've started a trend.
Now, have you identified like any students in the classes that you teach and kind of recommended the welding program for them? Because are you teaching like first year college students or like associates level?
Associates level.
So
Mm-hmm.
like some of these people are coming fresh out of high school and they've been told their entire life they need to get into college. Have you kind of let your students know, hey, if this whole academic way isn't the way for you to go, there's a whole nother side of this campus, with a bunch of people that are just like you, that you'll fit in just great over there. Because I've had a lot of students that, they tried the traditional college route because that's what they were told. If you want to be successful in this life, you've got to go get a degree. Next thing you know, they're over in the welding shop and they're like, I couldn't make it to college, or, that's not my thing. That's my parents' thing. So I'm here to work with my hands.
Boy, that's like the $1 million question. I, for job security, I guess I had better say, oh no, I don't encourage
I always
them.
promote them.
No, get your associate's
keep giving
degree
it the college
and come
try.
take Spanish. But truth be told, yes, my advisees now, when they come in and talk to me and I see that they're enrolled in the associate in art or associate in science program, we have that conversation, because I wish someone would have had that conversation with me 20 years ago. I probably wouldn't have listened, but you're right. I think we hear that message over and over again. Go get your degree. It doesn't matter what it's in, but go to a Big Ten school and you're going to land your dream job at 22 years old, making 6 figures, and the rest is history. And that's just not the reality. And I do see the value in a college degree, but what I encourage my students to do is have a plan that if you're going to major in Spanish, have something to go along with that that's marketable. Don't just say that you can speak Spanish, because that's not going to get you a job. I know we hear otherwise, but that has not been my reality. And so, yeah, I'll take those girls over to the shop and give them a tour, because I think sometimes that's all it takes, is that they've just, and that was my case. I just had never been around that. And knowing that that's an option and getting them comfortable in that area, in those buildings, around those machines, I think that's a big part of it. And yes, I do encourage them to consider some of the areas of the college. And it's been a good experience for me too, because going through that program has helped me see the big picture and really understand the value of the community college system. Mm-hmm. That I can see how everything works, rather than us just all being in our own silos. And here I am in arts and sciences, teaching Spanish, but to get to know the other areas of campus and the other faculty members and see, how we're all working together.
Yeah. And I think that's like a disservice that a lot of colleges do to their students, because I've noticed, I've worked at 2 different colleges, and both of them had a policy against students being enrolled in the skilled trades area as well as academia at the same time. Like I had a lot of students
you can only be in one program.
Yeah. And I was like, how is that possible? Like I can go over and work on my associate's degree and have a full-time job, but I can't work on my associate's degree and take welding. Why not? Or, I can't take welding and, take some night classes towards my college degree. Like you tell me this college degree is worth so much and that I need to get it. Like, why won't you let me work on that while I'm attending welding class? I had a lot of students that would take classes during the day, and I say, what are you going to do when you graduate the welding program? They're like, well, I'm going to go over and I'm going to finish my associate's degree. Well, why don't you do that in the evenings? You're not working. You're living at home with mom and dad. They won't let me register for the classes. I was like, well, that seems insane. Like, why can't you take both at the same time? Like, if you can work and go to school at the same time, why can't you go to school and go to school at the same time?
Now, our industrial areas do a really great job. They have associate and applied science programs for their students. Mm-hmm. So you can do just a certificate like I did, because I didn't need all of the academic courses, obviously. But you could also get your associate in applied science with that welding specialization.
You could do that at the same time, though?
Yes. But now if you're just doing an associate in art degree, you're right. Welding, for example, is not counted as an elective. And that's unfortunate. It should be.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe that's something I can work on.
Yeah, there you go. So that was one of the things, because we had at the college that I just left last year, you could take the welding program and you get 24 credits. You had to take the welding program. You had to graduate both levels of it, and then have a one welding certificate through the AWS, which were set up as an accredited testing facility, so we could do that for them. But they would get 24 credits towards an industrial management and supervision degree. Well, yeah, an AS in industrial management and supervision, which I thought was great. But again, you can't take the classes simultaneously. And it's just like I'm still getting college credits regardless. Why can't I just go from one class to, one campus to the next?
Right. What does it matter?
What does it matter? Like, why won't you let me? You're holding me back. I'm still going to pay you the tuition, but let me get.
Well, and we're offering free tuition right now too, and I will say that's a big part of me going back to school. I had just, after 20 years, paid off my student loans.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, thanks. Took me long enough, but from my undergrad and graduate degrees, and I could have never gone back to school otherwise. I wasn't going to take out any more student loans, and it's really cool to see these guys graduate from any of these programs with no debt, that they can graduate with a welding degree and at 20 years old go out and, be making $25-$30 an hour with no student debt. There's really something to be said for that.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Like I wish I would have known, because I actually had to take, when I was working on, I think it was part of my associate's degree, I had to take college success. And one of the modules that we had to take while we were in that class is they taught us how to take out a student loan. And like, I'm young and naive at the time. I think it was like 23, 24. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And
right. You
like,
just sign off, not understanding what you're signing.
Exactly.
Away.
So I was like, okay, cool. Like, they really didn't explain the ins and outs of it. You know, they explained how to apply for it and, you know, like what the qualifications were and how to get the money and what to do with it when you get it and all that good stuff. So that I ended up using, I took out a bunch of student loans after my GI Bill expired because it only lasts for so long. So that got me through my associates. But pretty much my entire bachelor's degree, I had to self-fund that. And like interest rates start racking up quick 6 months after you graduate. Yeah. So I'm still paying off my student loans, you know, and I think October they kick back on because everything's been in deferment now through COVID. But yeah, I'm interested to see what the bill's going to be now come October because I'm not
you probably aren't.
Well, yeah, I just want to know how much it's going to, you know, like set me back just because I don't have the what do you call it? Like when public service loan forgiveness. Oh, right. So like as a teacher, after 10 years or whatever, they completely wipe out your student debt. Well, I only have 6 years of that. 7 years. So I don't know if it carries over if I can get back in education, but you have to be a full-time instructor, which I don't think, or full-time faculty member. So I'm not going most of the time because the college kind of screws you around. They hire you as an adjunct and they keep dangling full-time in front of you for years. Right. So I think I only have about 3 or 4 years of full-time. So I'd have to go back and teach full-time for another 6 years to do loan forgiveness.
And by then you're going to have them paid off anyway.
By then, yeah, I'm just going to have it paid off anyway. But yeah, so I'm kind of like not looking forward to October, but looking forward to it just to see, you know, what that bill's going to be.
Well, I do think there's got to be a better way to do it.
Oh, there is.
Right. You're having 18-year-olds sign off on these numbers. I mean, that means nothing to them. I took a student a couple years ago to the credit union. His parents didn't speak English. He needed some help getting loans. So we went to the credit union. He was transferring to a 4-year school. And we sat down and the guy working at the credit union was talking about interest rates and credit scores. And the student who, again, is getting ready to sign off on probably $40,000 worth of student loans looks at me and asks what a credit score is. How do we allow that you don't know what a credit score is, but you've just taken out this much in debt?
It's a crooked system.
I've got a problem with that. Yeah, it is. It is. And it's a business. And again, I do see the value in a college degree, but I think we need to do a better job of really educating these students about what they're getting into.
Oh, for sure. Even the students that are going through different welding programs, like I tell them, do not pay out of pocket. Find a grant, find a scholarship, find a company that will actually do tuition reimbursement. Find something, because I am a huge advocate now that I'm paying student loans myself in helping other people avoid student loans.
Yes.
These student loans are the only loans that you cannot declare bankruptcy on. I can go out and buy a house. I can buy cars, boats, start up a business, get a fat stack of cash and a business loan. No problem. Things, just aren't working out 6 months. I can declare bankruptcy, boom, hit the reset button, back to zero. Student loans, no. They will follow you to your grave. And then they will transfer over to your beneficiary.
That's right.
Uncle Sam's going to get their money.
They will, but when you're 20, that means nothing.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to make so much money with this degree because they told me I'm going to be making 6 figures when I get out of here, so I'll just pay that back within the first couple of weeks. Nope.
No.
They don't see it. They don't know. And a lot of the teachers or the people that are currently involved in education that are paying off their own student loans, they don't warn the students like, hey, don't do this. Go down. There's an entire department dedicated to finding scholarships and grants for the area of interest that you have. Go do that first. I mean,
well, and I will say, yes, going back to having a difficult time asking for help and not wanting to accept help, I finally learned that there are so many resources on campus as a student, especially as a non-traditional female student coming back. It's incredible what you can get if you ask for it. Mm-hmm. That there are plenty of programs, and I'm hoping anyone listening who is considering going back to school but hasn't gone through with it yet because of the financial aspects, here's this. there are so many resources available to you. Like you just said, that get scholarships, any of the programs on campus, the tutoring, the, financial assistance for materials. Ask for help, and it's amazing the people that want to help you. Oh
yeah, that's same thing with students going to a welding program. I tell them students would come in for or potential students would come in for a tour of the welding program, and I tell them, hey, before you reach into your back pocket and whip out that plastic card, do yourself a favor. If you're really interested in taking this welding class, ours was a little bit more expensive than most community colleges, but way less than the for-profit institutes. But regardless of if you have to go pay for a welding program, the first thing you need to do is apply at the American Welding Society. Because right now you can become a student member for absolutely free, and that looks really good on your application. But apply for a scholarship to the American Welding Society, because they give out $2 million per year of welder training scholarships. You can get them at the district level, you can get them at the national level. They've got all kinds of scholarships. So that's one. Another one is the Micro Works Foundation. That dude gives out buckets of money. And if I remember correctly, Chloe Hudson went through the Micro Works Foundation, and she got her entire tuition paid for. That's what he does. He just pays the tuition. It's not like a set fee. You get $5,000, you get $2,000. I think they just pay the entire fee. Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs is another one. They give out scholarships for people that are getting into the skilled trades. There's a couple of them that are specifically for females. I can't remember the exact ones that I used to have a whole list that I would just print them off and be like, if it applies to you, go apply for that scholarship. Don't pay anything out of pocket until you find out if you're a recipient or not. Worst case scenario, then you go ahead and take out that student loan, because it's going to be much cheaper than doing an AA or a BS degree. But still, go get the loans or go get the scholarships first and use the loans as a backup plan. The loans should not be plan A. That's your fallback plan.
Yes, do your research. And like I said, even if it's the materials that you can't afford, there are scholarships for materials that if you can graduate debt free, what a difference that makes.
Yeah, I'll actually pull up a list of the resources. I'll try to track down the all the different resources that I had that I used to pass out to students. I'll put that in the show notes for this episode, just so if anybody's interested, they can click on it and apply. So if you're still in welding school right now, a lot of times you can apply for those. The money will go directly to the school, and whatever balance is left over, it'll go right back to the student.
That'd be great. Cool.
Yeah. Well, so what would you have as far as a specific piece of information or lessons learned or good advice that you would give somebody very similar in your situation? You're kind of looking into a second career, transferring from white collar to blue collar. What would you give them as far as advice?
I would say don't think about it too hard. Just go do it. That if you have been thinking about it, do it. That there's never going to be the right time, that there will always be something that you think maybe it's the money, or maybe it's whatever in your personal life that's coming up, and it's not a good time to go back to school. It'll never be the perfect time to go back to school, but you won't regret doing it. You might regret not going back, but try it. Give yourself permission to quit, like I did. That if it gets to be too much, that if it's not for you, you can walk away from it. But don't ever look back and say, I wish I would have.
So no regrets?
No, none at all. It's been an awesome experience, even on those nights, that I wanted to cuss out those instructors and hated everyone in that building. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I've loved every minute of it.
Well, awesome. I know you've got 5 more months left of your next session of welding training, so I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And feel free to reach out at any time if you got questions or anything. And then I'm going to try and help you find something once you graduate.
Thank you.
And then you can be a resource for other people that are, crossing that line, switching over from white collar to blue collar and getting into this stuff. You'll be you can be an advocate, and then you could also be a resource.
I'd be glad to. I'm a big fan of paying it forward, so I'm happy to help however I can.
Well, Terese, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I really appreciate you skipping welding class this evening to join the podcast. But if your instructor, if you need an excuse letter or whatever, just let me know. From you. Yeah, if you need a note, let me know. I'll fill it out.
All right, deal. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. All right, everyone, that is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for downloading the episode. You can find the links to the Fabricator Olympics with Kevin Johnson and all of the other scholarship links I mentioned right down in the show notes. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.